All right, Battletech enthusiasts, we're working our way through medium, heavy, assault mechs, looking at the different roles and, from my perspective, offering how I'm utilizing them on the tabletop, both as an individual mech, but also looking for that synergy, looking how to build it into a lance. And in this podcast, the title aptly so, the Thunderbolt, this classic mech that performs very well on the tabletop in a variety of roles, but is a little bit deceptive because a lot of mechs in Battletech, what we're looking to do is focus either on a certain role, something very, very specific, or weapons that group well together so you can dominate at a certain range. In my opinion, one of the best inner sphere mechs, although it's a little bit quirky looking, it grows on you, is the Grasshopper. You have great armor, great maneuverability. Heat is not an issue based on the weapon loadout. You have the LRM-5 in the head to put out just a little bit of long range, but then you have these lasers, these different class lasers that can just put out a tremendous amount of punishment when combined with the maneuverability, when combined with the armor of the mech. It makes it a very deadly mech. Compare that to the Thunderbolt. It's a little bit slower. It has lots of armor. And at first glance, the weapons seem a little bit of everything. We're talking stock variant. We've got the large laser. We've got the LRM-15. We've got 3 medium lasers. The short-range missile 2-pack, which is kind of interesting with that. And the machine guns. So it's not going to dominate at every single range. So how are we utilizing this mech? How am I utilizing this mech? This is the type of mech that I take when two things are happening. I really don't know what I'm going to be facing in terms of my opponent, and I don't really know the mission. The Thunderbolt doesn't have combined weapons to answer at every range, but it has something to add at every range. So at very, very long range, we're going to start hitting you with the LRM-15. Which from a perspective from someone that utilizes LRM packs extensively with longbows and archers, 15 is the lowest I want to go. Because that is going to give me a decent enough spread that if I roll average on the cluster table, I'm still going to do some okay damage. If I roll fantastic, I have the chance to do some really, really epic damage in there. I prefer a 20-pack. 15 is excellent. 10, LRM-5. It's either a secondary weapon or mounted on something like the Thorn, where I have the long-range capacity, but it's not going to be the star of the show. But at a distance, I start firing that out. Then as we close, you switch to the large laser. Decent damage. Then you switch, so as we close even more, we switch to the medium lasers. So you have 3 medium lasers in there. Heat management is a challenge, but if you need to push it at the medium range, or the closer in ranges where you're utilizing those medium lasers, you have the option for that. And then finally, if we get really, really, really close, we have the short-range missile packs, the lasers, of course, and the machine guns. So it has an answer for every single range. I find that the Thunderbolt works really well in that it's an anchor unit. It's something that goes with your other mechs, so if your opponent is looking to counter, you have a response for it. It's not going to be the star of the battlefield. It's not going to have that dedicated role, but it's going to protect your assets that have that dedicated role. What I mean by that is in my long-range missile build, this podcast is up in the archive under the Battletech playlist, and also it's over on my blog. You can follow that link underneath this vlog. It'll take you to there. But essentially I run 2 longbows, 2 archers, a bunch of LRM carriers, a bunch of locusts or Karnov with infantry to spot, and I just blanket the entire battlefield in direct fire. And if I happen to catch you at direct fire, it's going to be even crazier. The foil to that is that if you manage to get close to this cluster of longbows and missile carriers, archers are pretty resilient. We push that up to the podcast, but if you manage to close, I'm in trouble. So I need something to bodyguard or hang out and protect them. But I don't know what you're going to throw at me. This is where the Thunderbolt works really well. You drop in a bunch of infantry. Well, I've got the machine guns to take care of them. You bring in a heavier type mech that's going to try and pound away. Well, I have the armor, I have the medium lasers, I have the large laser for that. You bring in a bunch of stuff that's going to kind of swarm. Well, I've got the medium lasers, I've got the short-range missile pack to try and get some motive hits. I've got the machine guns to try and get some motive hits on your vehicles. It's not the best answer, but it is a answer to it. So in this kind of, I feel like the Thunderbolt is like the bard of Dungeons and Dragons. It's a jack of all trades, the master of none, but once you, and certainly there are other mechs that do this, but once you put on the extreme armor that it has, this is where it can go a couple of rounds. It can go toe-to-toe. And I feel that it is a very, very solid mech to incorporate in those two circumstances.